Father and Daughter was a huge hit, and as a show of just how excited Sunset was about my new persona, they credited me in the beginning of the movie as introducing Evelyn Hugo. It was the first and only time my name was under the marquee. On opening night, I thought of my mother. I knew that if she could have been there with me, she would have been beaming. "I did it," I wanted to tell her. "We're both out of there." When the movie did well, I thought Sunset would certainly greenlight Little Women, but Ari wanted Ed Baker and me in another movie as fast as possible. We didn't do sequels back then. Instead, we would essentially just make the same movie again with a different name and a slightly different conceit. So we commenced shooting on Next Door. Ed played my uncle, who had taken me in after my parents died. The two of us quickly fell into respective romantic entanglements with the widowed mother and son who lived next to us. Don was shooting a thriller on the lot at the time, and he used to come visit me every day when his set broke for lunch. I was absolutely smitten, in love and lust for the very first time. I found myself brightening up the moment I set eyes on him, always finding reasons to touch him, reasons to bring him up in conversation when he wasn't around. Harry was sick of hearing about him. "Ev, honey, I'm serious," Harry said one afternoon in his office when the two of us were sharing a drink. "I've had it up to my eyeballs with this Don Adler talk." I visited Harry about once a day back then, just to check in, see how he was doing. I always made it seem like business, but even then I knew he was the closest thing I had to a friend. Sure, I'd become friendly with a lot of the other actresses at Sunset. Ruby Riley in particular was a favorite of mine. She was tall and lean, with a dynamite laugh and an air of detachment to her. She never minced words, but she could charm the pants off almost anybody. Sometimes Ruby and I and some of the other girls on the lot would grab lunch and gossip about various goings-on, but to be honest, I would have thrown every single one of them in front of a moving train to get apart, and I think they would have done the same to me. Intimacy is impossible without trust, and we would have been idiots to trust one another. But Harry was different. Harry and I both wanted the same thing. We wanted Evelyn Hugo to be a household name. Also, we just liked each other. "We can talk about Don, or we can talk about when you're greenlighting Little Women," I said teasingly. Harry laughed. "It's not up to me, you know that." "Well, why is Ari dragging his feet?" "You don't want to do Little Women right now," Harry says. "It's better if you give it a few months." "I most certainly do want to do it right now." Harry shook his head and stood up, pouring himself another glass of scotch. He didn't offer me a second martini, and I knew it was because he knew I shouldn't have had the first one to begin with. "You could really be big," Harry said. "Everybody's saying so. If Next Door does as well as Father and Daughter, and you and Don keep going on the way you have been, you could be a big deal." "I know," I said. "That's what I'm banking on." "You want Little Women to come out just when people are thinking you only know how to do one thing." "What do you mean?" "You had a huge hit with Father and Daughter. People know you can be funny. They know you're adorable. They know they liked you in that picture." "Sure." "Now you're going to do it again. You're going to show them that you can recreate the magic. You're not just a one-trick pony." "All right. Maybe you do a picture with Don. After all, they can't print pictures of the two of you dancing at Ciro's or the Trocadero fast enough. But hear me out. You and Don do a picture. A matinee romance, maybe. Something where all the girls want to be you and all the boys want to be with you. Fine. And just when everyone is thinking they know you, that they get Evelyn Hugo, you play Joe. You knock everybody's socks off. Now the audience is going to think to themselves, "I knew she was something special." "But why can't I just do Little Women now, and they'll think that now?" Harry shook his head. because you have to give them time to invest in you. You have to give them time to get to know you. You're saying I should be predictable. I'm saying you should be predictable and then do something unpredictable, and they'll love you forever. I listened to him, thought about it. You're just feeding me a line, I said. Harry laughed. Look, this is Ari's plan. Like it or not, he wants you in a few more pictures before he's going to give you Little Women. But he is going to give you Little Women. All right, I said. What choice did I have, really? My contract with Sunset was for another 3 years. If I caused too much trouble, they had an option to drop me at any time. They could loan me out, force me to take projects, put me on leave without pay, you name it. They could do anything they wanted. Sunset owned me. Your job now, Harry said, is to see if you can make a real go of it with Don. It's in both of your best interests. I laughed. Oh, now you want to talk about Don. Harry smiled. I don't want to sit here and listen to you talk about how dreamy he is. That's boring. I want to know if the two of you might be ready to make it official. Don and I had been seen around town, our photos taken at every hot spot in Hollywood, dinner at Dan Tana's, lunch at the Vine Street Derby, tennis at the Beverly Hills Tennis Club, and we knew what we were doing, parading around in public. I needed Don's name mentioned in the same sentences as mine, and Don needed to look like he was a part of the new Hollywood. Photos of the two of us double dating with other stars went a long way toward solidifying his image as a man about town. But he and I never talked about any of that, because we were genuinely happy to be around each other. The fact that it was helping our careers felt like a bonus. The night of the premiere of his movie Big Trouble, Don picked me up wearing a slick dark suit and holding a Tiffany box. What's this? I asked him. I was wearing a black and purple floral Christian Dior. Open it, Don said, smiling. Inside was a giant platinum and diamond ring. It was braided on the sides with a square-cut jewel in the middle. I gasped. Are you... I knew it had been coming, if only because I knew Don wanted to sleep with me so bad it was nearly killing him. I'd been resisting him despite his very overt advances, but it was getting harder to do. The more we kissed in dark places, the more we found ourselves alone in the backs of limousines, the harder it was for me to push him away. I'd never had that feeling before, physical yearning. I'd never felt what it is to ache to be touched. Until dawn. I would find myself next to him, desperate to feel his hands on my bare skin. And I loved the idea of making love to someone. I'd had sex before, but it had never meant anything to me. I wanted to make love to Don. I loved him, and I wanted us to do it right. And here it was, a marriage proposal. I put my hand out to touch the ring, to make sure it was all real. Don shut the box before I could. I'm not asking you to marry me, he said. What? I felt foolish. I'd allowed myself to dream too big. Here I was, Evelyn Herrera, parading around as if my name was Evelyn Hugo and I could marry a movie star. At least not yet. I tried to hide my disappointment. Have it your way, then, I said, turning away from him to grab my clutch. Don't be sour, Don said. Who's sour? I said. We walked out of my apartment and I shut the door behind me. I'm going to ask you tonight. His voice was pleading, nearly apologetic, at the premiere, in front of everyone. I softened. I just wanted to make sure. I wanted to know. Don grabbed my hand and got down on one knee. He didn't open the ring box again. He just looked at me sincerely. Will you say yes? We should go, I said. You can't be late to your own movie. Will you say yes? That's all I need to know. I looked right at him and said, Yes, you dumb fool, I'm mad for you. He grabbed me and kissed me. It hurt a little. His teeth hit my lower lip. I was going to get married. To someone I loved this time. To someone who made me feel the way I was pretending to feel in the movies. What could be any further from that tiny, sad apartment in Hell's Kitchen than this? An hour later, on the red carpet, in a sea of photographers and publicists, Don Adler got down on one knee. "Evelyn Hugo, will you marry me?" I cried and nodded. He stood up and put the ring on my finger, and then he picked me up and spun me in the air. As Don put me back down, I saw Harry Cameron by the theater door, clapping for us. He gave me a wink.
Sub Rosa, March 4th, 1957. Dawn and Ev for Ev. You heard it here first, folks. Hollywood's newest it couple, Dawn Adler and Evelyn Hugo, are tying the knot. The most eligible of eligible bachelors has chosen none other than the sparkling blonde starlet to be his bride. The two have been seen canoodling and cavorting all over, and now they've decided to make it official. Rumor has it that Mary and Roger Adler, Dawn's oh-so-proud parents, couldn't be happier to have Evelyn joining the family. You can bet your bottom dollar that the nuptials will be the event of the season. With a Hollywood family this glamorous and a bride this beautiful, the whole town will be talking.
We had a beautiful wedding. 300 guests, hosted by Mary and Roger Adler. Ruby was my maid of honor. I wore a jewel-necked taffeta gown covered with rose-point lace, with sleeves down to my wrists, and a full lace skirt. It was designed by Vivian Worley, the head costumer for Sunset. Gwendolyn did my hair, pulled back into a simple but flawless bun, to which my tulle veil was attached. There wasn't much of the wedding that was planned by us. It was controlled almost entirely by Mary and Roger, and the rest by Sunset. Don was expected to play the game exactly the way his parents wanted it played. Even then I could tell he was eager to get out of their shadow, to eclipse their stardom with his own. Don had been raised to believe that fame was the only power worth pursuing. And what I loved about him was that he was ready to become the most powerful person in any room by becoming the most adored. And while our wedding night might have been at the whim of others, our love and our commitment to each other felt sacred. When Don and I looked into each other's eyes and held hands as we said "I do" at the Beverly Hills Hotel, it felt like it was just the two of us up there, despite being surrounded by half of Hollywood. Toward the end of the night, after the wedding bells and our announcement as a married couple, Harry pulled me aside. He asked me how I was doing. "I'm the most famous bride in the world right now," I said. "I'm great." Harry laughed. "You'll be happy," he asked, "with Don? He's going to take good care of you?" "I have no doubt about it." I believed in my heart that I'd found someone who understood me, or at least understood the me I was trying to be. At the age of 19, I thought Don was my happy ending. Harry put his arm around me and said, "I'm happy for you, kid." I grabbed his hand before he could pull it away. I'd had 2 glasses of champagne and I was feeling fresh. "How come you never tried anything?" I asked him. "We've known each other a few years now, not even a kiss on the cheek." "I'll kiss you on the cheek if you want," Harry said, smiling. "Not what I mean, and you know it." "Did you want something to happen?" he asked me. I wasn't attracted to Harry Cameron, despite the fact that he was a categorically attractive man. "No," I said, "I don't think I did." "But you wanted me to want something to happen." I smiled. "And what if I did? Is that so wrong? I'm an actress, Harry. Don't you forget that." Harry laughed. You have actress written all over your face. I remember it every single day. Then why, Harry? What's the truth? Harry took a sip of his scotch and took his arm off me. It's hard to explain. Try. You're young. I waved him off. Most men don't seem to have any problem with a little thing like that. My own husband is 7 years older than me. I looked over to see Don swaying with his mother on the dance floor. Mary was still gorgeous in her 50s. She'd come to fame during the silent film era and did a few talkies before retiring. She was tall and intimidating, with a face that was striking more than anything. Harry took another swig of his scotch and put the glass down. He looked thoughtful. It's a long and complicated story, but suffice it to say you've just never been my type. The way he said it, I knew he was trying to tell me something. Harry wasn't interested in girls like me. Harry wasn't interested in girls at all. You're my best friend in the world, Harry, I said. Do you know that? He smiled. I got the impression he did so because he was charmed and because he was relieved. He'd revealed himself, however, vaguely, and I was meeting him with acceptance, however indirectly. Am I really? He asked. I nodded. Well then, you'll be mine. I raised my glass to him. Best friends tell each other everything, I said. He smiled, raising his own glass. I don't buy that, he teased. Not for 1 minute. Don came over and interrupted us. Would you mind terribly, Cameron, if I danced with my bride? Harry put his hands up as if in surrender. She's all yours. That she is. I took Don's hand, and he twirled me around to the dance floor. He looked right into my eyes. He really looked at me, really saw me. Do you love me, Evelyn Hugo? He asked. More than anything in the world. Do you love me, Don Adler? I love your eyes and your tits and your talent. I love the fact that you've got absolutely no ass on you. I love everything about you, so to say yes would be an understatement. I laughed and kissed him. We were surrounded by people, packed onto the dance floor. His father, Roger, was smoking a cigar with Ari Sullivan in the corner. I felt a million miles away from my old life, the old me, that girl who needed Ernie Diaz for anything at all. Don pulled me close and put his mouth to my ear, whispering, Me and you, we will rule this town. We were married for 2 months before he started hitting me. 6 weeks into our marriage, Don and I shot a weepy on location in Puerto Vallarta. Called One More Day, it was about a rich girl, Diane, who spends the summer with her parents at their second home, and the local boy, Frank, who falls in love with her. Naturally, they can't be together because her parents don't approve. The first weeks of my marriage to Don had been nearly blissful. We bought a house in Beverly Hills and had it decorated in marble and linen. We had pool parties nearly every weekend, drinking champagne and cocktails all afternoon and into the night. Don made love like a king, truly, with the confidence and power of someone in charge of a fleet of men. I melted underneath him. In the right moment for him, I'd have done anything he wanted. He had flipped a switch in me, a switch that changed me from a woman who saw making love as a tool into a woman who knew that making love was a need. I needed him. I needed to be seen. I came alive under his gaze. Being married to Don had shown me another side of myself, a side I was just getting to know, a side I liked. When we got to Puerto Vallarta, we spent a few days in town before shooting. We took our rented boat out into the water. We dived into the ocean. We made love in the sand. But as we started shooting and the daily stresses of Hollywood started fracturing our newlywed cocoon, I could tell the tide was turning. Don's last movie, The Gun at Point Doom, wasn't doing well at the box office. It was his first time in a Western, his first crack at playing an action hero. Photo Moment had just published a review saying, "Don Adler is no John Wayne." Hollywood Digest wrote, "Adler looks like a fool holding a gun." I could tell it was bothering him, making him doubt himself. Establishing himself as a masculine action hero was a vital part of his plan. His father had mostly played the straight man in madcap comedies, a clown. Don was out to prove he was a cowboy. It did not help that I had just won an Audience Appreciation Award for Best Rising Star. On the day we shot the final goodbye, where Diane and Frank kiss one last time on the beach, Don and I woke up in our rented bungalow, and he told me to make him breakfast. Mind you, he did not ask me to make him breakfast. He barked the order. Regardless, I ignored his tone and called down to the maid. She was a Mexican woman named Maria. When we had first arrived, I was unsure if I should speak Spanish to the local people, and then, without ever making a formal decision about it, I found myself speaking slow, over-enunciated English to everyone. "Maria, will you please make Mr. Adler some breakfast?" I said into the phone. And then I turned to Don and said, "What would you like, some coffee and eggs?" Our maid back in Los Angeles, Paula, made his breakfast every morning. She knew just how he liked it. I realized in that moment that I'd never paid attention. Frustrated, Don grabbed the pillow from under his head and smashed it over his face, screaming into it. "What has gotten into you?" I said. "If you're not going to be the kind of wife who is going to make me breakfast, you can at least know how I like it." He escaped to the bathroom. I was bothered, but not entirely surprised. I had quickly learned that Don was only kind when he was happy, and he was only happy when he was winning. I had met him on a winning streak, married him as he was ascending. I was quickly learning that sweet Don was not the only Don. Later, in our rented Corvette, Don backed out of the driveway and started heading the 10 blocks towards set. "Are you ready for today?" I asked him. I was trying to be uplifting. Don stopped in the middle of the road. He turned to me. "I've been a professional actor for longer than you've been alive." This was true, albeit on a technicality. He was in one of Mary's silent movies as a baby. He didn't act in a movie again until he was 21. There were a few cars behind us now. We were holding up traffic. "Don," I said, trying to encourage him to move forward. He wasn't listening. The white truck behind us started pulling around, trying to get past us. "Do you know what Alan Thomas said to me yesterday?" Don said. Alan Thomas was his new agent. Alan had been encouraging Don to leave Sunset Studios to go freelance. A lot of actors were navigating their careers on their own. It was leading to big paychecks for big stars, and Don was getting antsy. He kept talking about making more for one picture than his parents had made their whole careers. Be wary of men with something to prove. People around town are asking why you're still going by Evelyn Hugo. I changed my name legally. What do you mean? On the marquee. It should say Don and Evelyn Adler. That's what people are saying. Who is saying that? People. What people? They think you wear the pants. My head fell into my hands. Don, you're being silly. Another car came up around us, and I watched as they recognized Don and me. We were seconds away from a full page in Sub Rosa magazine about how Hollywood's favorite couple were at each other's throat. They'd probably say something like, "The Adlers gone Madlers?" I suspected Don saw the headlines writing themselves at the same time I did, because he started the car and drove us to set. When we pulled onto the lot, I said, "I can't believe we're almost 45 minutes late." And Don said, "Yeah, well, we're Adlers. We can be." I found it absolutely repugnant. I waited until the two of us were in his trailer, and I said, "When you talk like that, you sound like a horse's ass. You shouldn't say things like that where people can hear you." He was taking off his jacket. Wardrobe was due in any moment. I should have just left and gone to my own trailer. I should have let him be. "I think you have gotten the wrong impression here, Evelyn," Don said. "And how is that?" He came right up into my face. "We are not equals, love. And I'm sorry if I've been so kind that you've forgotten that." I was speechless. "I think this should be the last movie you do," he said. "I think it's time for us to have children." His career wasn't turning out the way he wanted. And if he wasn't going to be the most famous person in his family, he surely wasn't going to allow that person to be me. I looked right at him and said, "Absolutely, positively not." And he smacked me across the face. Sharp, fast, strong. It was over before I even knew what happened. The skin on my face stinging from the blow I could barely believe had come my way. If you've never been smacked across the face, let me tell you something. It is humiliating. Mostly because your eyes start to tear up whether you mean to be crying or not. The shock of it and the sheer force of it stimulate your tear ducts. There is no way to take a smack across the face and look stoic. All you can do is remain still and stare straight ahead, allowing your face to turn red and your eyes to bloom. So that's what I did. The way I'd done it when my father hit me. I put my hand to my jaw, and I could feel the skin heating up under my hand. The assistant director knocked on the door. "Mr. Adler, is Miss Hugo with you?" Don was unable to speak. "1 minute, Bobby," I said. I was impressed by how unstrained my voice was, how confident it seemed. It sounded like the voice of a woman who had never been hit a day in her life. There were no mirrors I could get to easily. Don had his back to them, blocking them. I pushed my jaw forward. "Is it red?" I said. Don could barely look at me, but he glanced and then nodded his head. He was boyish and ashamed, as if I were asking him if he'd been the one to break the neighbor's window. "Go out there and tell Bobby I'm having lady troubles. He'll be too embarrassed to ask anything else. Then tell your wardrobe person to meet you in my dressing room. Have Bobby tell mine to meet me in here in a half hour." "Okay," he said, and then grabbed his jacket and slipped out. The minute he was out the door, I locked myself inside and slumped down against the wall, the tears coming fast the moment no one could see them. I had made my way 3,000 miles from where I was born. I had found a way to be in the right place at the right time. I'd changed my name, changed my hair, changed my teeth and my body. I'd learned how to act. I'd made the right friends. I'd married into a famous family. Most of America knew my name. And yet. I got up off the floor and wiped my eyes. I gathered myself. I sat down at the vanity, 3 mirrors in front of me lined with light bulbs. How silly is it that I thought that if I ever found myself in a movie star's dressing room, that meant I'd have no troubles. A few moments later, Gwendolyn knocked on the door to do my hair. "1 second!" I yelled out. "Evelyn, we have to move quickly. You guys are already behind schedule. Just 1 second." I looked at myself in the mirror and realized I couldn't force the redness to go away. The question was whether I trusted Gwen, and I decided I did. I had to. I stood up and opened the door. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, "you look a fright." "I know." She looked more closely at me and realized what she was seeing. "Did you fall?" "Yes," I said, "I did. I fell right over onto the counter. Jaw caught the worst of it." We both knew I was lying. And to this day, I'm not sure whether Gwen asked me if I fell in order to spare me the need to lie, or to encourage me to keep quiet. I wasn't the only woman being hit back then. A lot of women were negotiating the very same things I was at that moment. There was a social code for these things, the first rule being to shut up about it. An hour later, I was being escorted to set. We were to film a scene just outside a mansion on the beach. Don was sitting in his chair, the 4 wooden legs digging into the sand behind the director. He ran up to me. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" His voice was so chipper, so consoling, that for a moment I thought he had forgotten what happened. "I'm fine. Let's get on with it." We took our places. The sound guy mic'd us. The grips made sure we were lit properly. I put everything out of my head. Hold on, the director yelled. "Ronnie, what's going on with the boom?" Distracted by a conversation, he walked away from the camera. Don covered his mic and then put his hand on my chest and covered mine. "Evelyn, I'm so sorry," he whispered into my ear. I pulled back and looked at him, stunned. No one had ever apologized for hitting me before. "I never should have laid a hand on you," he said. His eyes were filling with tears. "I'm ashamed of myself for doing anything at all to hurt you." He looked so pained. "I will do anything for your forgiveness." Maybe the life I thought I had wasn't so far away after all. "Can you forgive me?" he asked. Maybe this was all a mistake. Maybe it didn't mean anything had to change. "Of course I can," I said. The director ran back to the camera, and Don leaned back, taking his hands off our mics. And action! Don and I were both nominated for Academy Awards for One More Day, and I think the general consensus was that it didn't matter how talented we were. People just loved seeing us together. To this day, I have no idea if either of us is actually any good in it. It is the only movie I've ever shot that I cannot bring myself to watch. A man hits you once and apologizes, and you think it will never happen again. But then you tell him you're not sure you ever want a family, and he hits you once more. You tell yourself it's understandable what he did. You were sort of rude the way you said it. You do want a family someday, you truly do. You're just not sure how you're going to manage it with your movies. But you should have been more clear. The next morning he apologizes and brings you flowers. He gets down on his knees. The third time, it's a disagreement about whether to go out to Romanoff's or stay in, which, you realize when he pushes you into the wall behind you, is actually about the image of your marriage to the public. The fourth time, it's after you both lose at the Oscars. You are in a silk emerald green one-shoulder dress. He's in a tux with tails. He has too much to drink at the after-parties, trying to nurse his wounds. You're in the front seat of the car in your driveway, about to go inside. He's upset that he lost. You tell him it's okay. He tells you that you don't understand. You remind him that you lost too. He says, "Yeah, but your parents are trash from Long Island. No one expects anything from you." You know you shouldn't, but you say, "I'm from Hell's Kitchen, you asshole." He opens the parked car's door and pushes you out. When he comes crawling to you in tears the next morning, you don't actually believe him anymore. But now this is just what you do. The same way you fix the hole in your dress with a safety pin or tape up the crack in a window. That's the part I was stuck in. The part where you accept the apology because it's easier than addressing the root of the problem. When Harry Cameron came to my dressing room and told me the good news, Little Women was getting the green light. It's you as Joe, Ruby Riley as Meg, Joy Nathan as Amy, and Celia St. James is playing Beth. Celia St. James? From Olympian Studios? Harry nodded. What's with the frown? I thought you'd be thrilled. Oh, I said, turning further toward him, I absolutely am. You don't like Celia St. James? I smiled at him. That teenage bitch is going to act me under the table. Harry threw his head back and laughed. Celia St. James had made headlines earlier in the year. At the age of 19, she played a young widowed mother in a war period piece. Everyone said she was sure to be nominated next year. Exactly the sort of person the studio would want playing Beth, and exactly the sort of person Ruby and I would hate. You're 21 years old. You're married to the biggest movie star there is right now, and you were just nominated for an Academy Award, Evelyn. Harry had a point, but so did I. Celia was going to be a problem. It's okay. I'm ready. I'm going to give the best goddamn performance of my life, and when people watch the movie, they are going to say, Beth who? Oh, the middle sister who dies? What about her? I have absolutely no doubt, Harry said, putting his arm around me. You're fabulous, Evelyn. The whole world knows it. I smiled. You really think so? This is something that everyone should know about stars. We like to be told we are adored, and we want you to repeat yourself. Later in my life, people would always come up to me and say, I'm sure you don't want to hear me blabbering on about how great you are, and I always say, as if I'm joking, oh, one more time won't hurt. But the truth is, praise is just like an addiction. The more you get it, the more of it you need just to stay even. Yes, he said, I really think so. I stood up from my chair to give Harry a hug, but as I did, the lighting highlighted my upper cheekbone, the rounded spot just below my eye. I watched as Harry's gaze ran across my face. He could see the light bruise I was hiding, could see the purple and blue under the surface of my skin, bleeding through the pancake makeup. Evelyn, he said. He put his thumb up to my face as if he needed to feel it, to know it was real. Harry, don't. I'll kill him. No, you won't. We're best friends, Evelyn, me and you. I know, I said. I know that. You said best friends tell each other everything. And you knew it was bullshit when I said it. I stared at him as he stared at me. Let me help, he said. What can I do? You can make sure I look better than Celia, better than all of them in the dailies. That's not what I mean. But it's all you can do. Evelyn, I kept my upper lip stiff. There's no move here, Harry. He understood what I meant. I couldn't leave Don Adler. I could talk to Ari. I love him, I said, turning away and clipping my earrings on. It was the truth. Don and I had problems, but so did a lot of people. And he was the only man who had ever ignited something in me. Sometimes I hated myself for wanting him, for finding myself brightening up when his attention was on me, for still needing his approval. But I did. I loved him, and I wanted him in my bed, and I wanted to stay in the spotlight. End of discussion. A moment later, there was another knock on my door. It was Ruby Riley. She was shooting a drama where she played a young nun. She was standing in front of the two of us in a black tunic and a white cowl. Her hood was in her hand. "Did you hear?" Ruby said to me. "Well, of course you heard. Harry's here." Harry laughed. "You both start rehearsals in 3 weeks." Ruby hit Harry on the arm playfully. "No, not that part. Did you hear Celia St. James is playing Beth? That tart's going to show us all up." "See, Harry," I said, "Celia St. James is going to ruin everything." The morning we started rehearsals for Little Women, Don woke me up with breakfast in bed, half a grapefruit and a lit cigarette. I found this highly romantic because it was exactly what I wanted. "Good luck today, sweetheart," he said as he got dressed and headed out the door. "I know you'll show Celia St. James what it really means to be an actress." I smiled and wished him a good day. I ate the grapefruit and left the tray in bed as I got into the shower. When I got out, our maid Paula was in the bedroom cleaning up after me. She was picking the butt of my cigarette off the duvet, I'd left it on the tray, but it must have fallen. I didn't keep a neat house. My clothes from last night were on the floor. My slippers were on top of the dresser. My towel was in the sink. Paula had her work cut out for her, and she didn't find me particularly charming. That much was clear. "Can you do that later?" I said to her. "I'm terribly sorry, but I'm in a rush to get to set." She smiled politely and left. I wasn't in a rush, really. I just wanted to get dressed, and I wasn't going to do that in front of Paula. I didn't want her to see that there was a bruise, dark purple and yellowing on my ribs. Don had pushed me down the stairs 9 days before. Even as I say it, all these years later, I feel the need to defend him, to say that it wasn't as bad as it sounds, that we were toward the bottom of the stairs, and he gave me a shove that bumped me down about 4 steps and onto the floor. Unfortunately, the table by the door where we kept the keys and the mail is what caught my fall. I landed on it on my left side, the handle on the top drawer getting me right in the rib cage. When I said that I thought I might have broken a rib, Don said, "Oh, no, honey, are you all right?" As if he wasn't the one who pushed me. Like an idiot, I said, "I think I'm fine." The bruise wasn't going away quickly. Paula burst back in through the door a moment later. "Sorry, Mrs. Adler, I forgot the—" I panicked. "For heaven's sake, Paula, I asked you to leave." She turned around and walked out. And what pissed me off more than anything was that if she was going to sell a story, why wasn't it that one? Why didn't she tell the world that Don Adler was beating his wife? Why instead did she come after me? 2 hours later, I was on the set of Little Women. The soundstage had been turned into a New England cabin, complete with snow on the windows. Ruby and I were united in our fight against Celia St. James stealing the movie from us, despite the fact that anyone who plays Beth leaves the audience reaching for the hankies. You can't tell an actress that a rising tide lifts all boats. It doesn't work that way for us. But on the first day of rehearsals, as Ruby and I hung out by craft services and drank coffee, it became clear that Celia St. James had absolutely no idea how much we all hated her. "Oh, God," she said, coming up to Ruby and me, "I'm so scared." She was wearing gray trousers and a pale pink, short-sleeved sweater. She had a childlike girl-next-door kind of face. Big, round, pale blue eyes, long lashes, Cupid's bow lips, long strawberry red hair. She was simplicity perfected. I was the sort of beautiful that women knew they could never truly emulate. Men knew they would never even get close to a woman like me. Ruby was the elegant, aloof sort of beauty. Ruby was cool. Ruby was chic. But Celia was the sort of beautiful that felt as if you could hold it in your hands. Like if you played your cards right, you might just get to marry a girl like Celia St. James. Ruby and I both were aware of what kind of power that is. Accessibility. Celia toasted a piece of bread at the craft services table and slathered it with peanut butter and then bit into it. "What on earth are you scared of?" Ruby said. "I have no idea what I'm doing," Celia said. "Celia, you can't really expect us to fall for this aw-shucks routine," I said. She looked at me, and the way she did it made me feel as if no one had ever really looked at me before. Not even Don. "That hurts my feelings," she said. I felt a little bit bad, but I certainly wasn't going to let on. "I didn't mean anything by it," I said. "Yes, you absolutely did," Celia said. "I think you're a bit of a cynic." Ruby, that fair-weather friend, pretended to hear the AD calling for her and took off. "I just have a hard time believing a woman the entire town is saying will be nominated next year is doubting her ability to play Beth March. It's the chewiest, most likable role in the whole thing." "If it's such a sure thing, then why didn't you take it?" she asked me. I'm too old, Celia, but thank you for that. Celia smiled, and I realized I'd played right into her hands. That's when I started to take a liking to Celia St. James.
Let's pick up here tomorrow, Evelyn says. The sun set long ago. As I look around, I notice the remains of breakfast, lunch, and dinner scattered across the room. Okay, I say. By the way, she adds as I start to pack up, my publicist got an email today from your editor, inquiring about a photo shoot for the June cover. Oh, I say. Frankie has checked in on me a few times now. I know I need to call her back, update her on this situation. I'm just not sure of my next move. I take it you haven't told them the plan, Evelyn says. I place my computer in my bag. Not yet. I hate the slight tint of sheepishness that comes out when I say it. That's fine, Evelyn says. I'm not judging you, if that's what you're worried about. God knows I'm no defender of the truth. I laugh. You'll do what you need to do, she says. I will, I say. I just don't know what exactly that is yet. When I get home, the package from my mother is sitting just inside my building's door. I pick it up, only to realize that it's incredibly heavy. I end up pushing it across the tile floor with my foot. I pull it one step at a time up the stairs, and then I drag it into my apartment. When I open the box, it's filled with some of my father's photo albums. The front of each is embossed with James Grant in the bottom right-hand corner. Nothing can stop me from sitting down, right on the floor where I am, and looking through the photos one by one. On-set still photos of directors, famous actors, board extras, ADs, you name it, they are all in here. My dad loved his job. He loved taking pictures of people who weren't paying attention to him. I remember once, about a year before he died, he took a 2-month job in Vancouver. My mom and I went to visit him twice while he was up there, but it was so much colder than L.A., and he was gone for what felt like so long. I asked him why. Why couldn't he just work at home? Why did he have to take this job? He told me he wanted to do work that invigorated him. He said, "You have to do that too, Monique, when you're older. You have to find a job that makes your heart feel big instead of one that makes it feel small, okay? You promise me that?" He put out his hand, and I shook it, like we were making a business deal. I was 6. By the time I was 8, we'd lost him. I always kept what he said in my heart. I spent my teenage years with a burning pressure to find a passion, one that would expand my soul in some way. It was no small task. In high school, long after we'd said goodbye to my father, I tried theater and orchestra. I tried joining the chorus. I tried soccer and debate. In a moment of what felt like epiphany, I tried photography, hoping that the thing that expanded my father's heart might expand my own. But it wasn't until I was assigned to write a profile piece on one of my classmates in my composition class freshman year at USC that I felt anything close to a swelling in my chest. I liked writing about real people. I liked finding evocative ways of interpreting the real world. I liked the idea of connecting people by sharing their stories. Following that part of my heart led me to J School at NYU, which led to my internship at WNYC. I followed that passion to a life of freelancing for embarrassing blogs, living check to check and hand to mouth, and then eventually to the Discourse, where I met David when he was working on the site's redesign, and then to Vivant, and now to Evelyn. One small thing my dad said to me on a cold day in Vancouver has essentially been the basis of my entire life's trajectory. For a brief moment, I wonder if I would have listened to him if he hadn't died. Would I have clung to his every word so tightly if his advice had felt unlimited? At the end of the last photo album, I come across candids that don't appear to be from a movie set. They were taken at a barbecue. I recognize my mom in the background of some of them, and then, at the very end, is one of me with my parents. I can't be more than 4 years old. I'm eating a piece of cake with my hand, looking directly into the camera, as my mother holds me and my father has his arm around us. Most people still called me by my first name, Elizabeth, back then. Elizabeth Monique Grant. My mom assured me I'd grow up to be a Liz or a Lizzie, but my father had always loved the name Monique and couldn't help but call me by it. I would often remind him that my name was Elizabeth, then he would tell me that my name was whatever I wanted it to be. When he passed away, it became clear to both my mother and me that I should be Monique. It eased our pain ever so slightly to honor every last thing about him. So my pet name became my real name, and my mother often reminds me that my name was a gift from my father. Looking at this picture, I'm struck by how beautiful my parents were together, James and Angela. I know what it cost them to build a life, to have me. A white woman and a black man in the early 80s, neither of their families being particularly thrilled with the arrangement. We moved around a lot before my father died, trying to find a neighborhood where my parents felt at ease at home. My mother didn't feel welcome in Baldwin Hills. My father didn't feel comfortable in Brentwood. I was in school before I met another person who looked like me. Her name was Yael. Her father was Dominican, and her mother was from Israel. She liked to play soccer. I liked to play dress-up. We could rarely agree on anything. But I liked that when someone asked her if she was Jewish, she said, "I'm half Jewish." No one else I knew was half something. For so long, I felt like two halves. And then my father died, and I felt like I was one half my mother and one half lost, a half that I feel so torn from, so incomplete without. But looking at this picture now, the three of us together in 1986, me in overalls, my father in a polo, my mother in a denim jacket, we look like we belong together. I don't look like I'm half of one thing and half of another, but rather one whole thing, theirs, loved. I miss my dad. I miss him all the time. But it's moments like this, when I'm on the precipice of finally doing work that might just expand my heart, that I wish I could at least send him a letter telling him what I'm doing. And I wish he could send me one back. I already know what he would write. Something like, "I'm proud of you, I love you." But still, I'd like to get one anyway. "All right," I say. My spot at Evelyn's desk has become my second home. I've come to rely on Grace's morning coffee. It has replaced my usual Starbucks habit. Let's pick up where we left off yesterday. You're about to start Little Women. Go. Evelyn laughs. "You've become an old hand at this," she says. "I learn quickly."
A week into rehearsals, Don and I were lying in bed. He was asking how it was going, and I admitted that Celia was just as good as I'd thought she'd be. "Well, the people of Montgomery County is going to be #1 again this week. I'm at the top of my game again, and my contract is up at the end of this year. Ari Sullivan is willing to do whatever I want to make me happy. So just say the word, baby, and poof, she's out of there." "No," I said to him, putting my hand on his chest and my head on his shoulder. "It's okay. I'm the lead. She's supporting. I'm not going to worry too much. And anyway, there's something I like about her." "There's something I like about you," he said, pulling me on top of him, and for a moment all my worries completely disappeared. The next day when we broke for lunch, Joy and Ruby went off to get turkey salads. Celia caught my eye. "There's no chance you'd want to cut out and grab a milkshake, is there?" she asked. The nutritionist at Sunset would not have liked me getting a milkshake, but what he didn't know wouldn't kill him. 10 minutes later, we were in Celia's baby pink 1956 Chevy, making our way to Hollywood Boulevard. Celia was a terrible driver. I gripped the door handle as if it was capable of saving my life. Celia stopped at the light at Sunset Boulevard and Cahuenga. "I'm thinking Schwab's," she said with a grin. Schwab's was the place everybody hung around during the day back then, and everybody knew that Sidney Skolsky from Photoplay worked out of Schwab's almost every day. Celia wanted to be seen there. She wanted to be seen there with me. "What kind of game are you playing?" I asked. "I'm not playing any game," she said, falsely insulted that I'd suggest such a thing. "Oh, Celia," I said, dismissing her with a wave of my hand. "I've been at this a few more years than you. You're the one who just fell off the turnip truck. Don't confuse us." The light turned green and Celia gunned it. "I'm from Georgia," she said, "just outside of Savannah." "So?" "I'm just saying I didn't fall off a turnip truck. I was scouted by a guy from Paramount back home." I found it somewhat intimidating, maybe even threatening, that someone had flown out to woo her. I had made my way to town through my own blood, sweat, and tears, and Celia had Hollywood running to her before she was even somebody. "That may be so," I said, "but I still know what game you're running, honey. Nobody goes to Schwab's for the milkshakes." "Listen," she said, the tone of her voice changing slightly, becoming more sincere. "I could use a story or two. If I'm going to star in my own movie soon, I need some name recognition. And this milkshake business is all just a ruse to be seen with me." I found it insulting, both being used and being underestimated. Celia shook her head. "No, not at all. I wanted to go get a milkshake with you, and then when we pulled out of the lot, I thought, we should go to Schwab's." Celia stopped abruptly at the light at Sunset and Highland. I realized at that point that was just how she drove. A lead foot on both the gas and the brake. "Take a right," I said. "What?" "Take a right." "Why?" "Celia, take the goddamn right before I open this car door and throw myself out of it." She looked at me like I was nuts, which was fair. I had just threatened to kill myself if she didn't put on her blinker. She turned right on Highland. "Take a left at the light," I said. She didn't ask questions, she just put on her blinker, and then she spun onto Hollywood Boulevard. I instructed her to park the car on a side road. We walked to C.C. Brown's. "They have better ice cream," I said, as we walked in. I was putting her in her place. I wasn't going to be photographed with her unless I wanted to be, unless it was my idea. I certainly wasn't going to be pushed around by somebody less famous than I was. Celia nodded, feeling the sting. The two of us sat down, and the guy behind the counter came up to us, momentarily speechless. He said, "Do you want menus?" I shook my head. "I know what I want. Celia?" She looked at him. "Chocolate malt, please." I watched the way his eyes fixed on her, the way she bent forward slightly with her arms together, emphasizing her chest. She seemed unaware of what she was doing, and that mesmerized him even more. "And I'll have a strawberry milkshake," I said. When he looked at me, I saw his eyes open wider, as if he wanted to see as much of me as he could at one time. "Are you Evelyn Hugo?" "No," I said, and then I smiled and looked him right in the eye. It was ironic and teasing, with the same tone and inflection I'd used countless times when I was recognized around town. He scattered away. "Cheer up, Buttercup," I said as I looked at Celia. She was staring down at the glossy counter. "You're getting a better milkshake out of the deal." "I upset you," she said, "with the Schwab's thing. I'm sorry." "Celia, if you're going to be as big as you clearly want to be, you need to learn two things." "And what are they?" First, you have to push people's boundaries and not feel bad about it. No one is going to give you anything if you don't ask for it. You tried. You were told no. Get over it. And the second thing? When you use people, be good at it. I wasn't trying to use you. Yes, Celia, you were, and I'm fine with that. I wouldn't have a moment's hesitation in using you, and I wouldn't expect you to have a second thought about using me. Do you know the difference between the two of us? There are a lot of differences between the two of us. Do you know the one in particular I'm talking about? I said. What is it? That I know I use people. I'm fine with the idea of using people, and all of that energy that you spend trying to convince yourself that you're not using people, I spend getting better at it. And you're proud of that? I'm proud of where it's gotten me. Are you using me now? If I was, you'd never know. That's why I'm asking. The guy behind the counter came back with our milkshakes. He appeared to have to give himself a pep talk just to give them to us. No, I said to Celia once he was gone. No what? No, I'm not using you. Well, that's a relief, Celia said. It struck me as painfully naive, the way she so easily, so readily believed me. I was telling the truth, but still. Do you know why I'm not using you? I said. This should be good, Celia said as she took a sip of her shake. I laughed, surprised by both the world-weariness in her voice and the speed with which she spoke. Celia would go on to win more Oscars than anybody else in our circle back then, and it was always for intense, dramatic roles. But I always thought she'd be dynamite in a comedy. She was so quick. The reason I'm not using you is that you have nothing to offer me. Not yet, at least. Celia took a sip of her shake again, stung, and then I leaned forward and took a sip of mine. I don't think that's true, Celia said. I'll give you that you're more famous than me. Being married to Captain Hollywood can have that effect on a person. But other than that, we're at the same place, Evelyn. You've turned in a couple of good performances, so have I, and now we're in a movie together, which both of us took on because we want an Academy Award. And let's be honest, I have a leg up on you in that regard. And why is that? Because I'm a better actress. I stopped sipping the thick shake through the straw and turned myself toward her. How do you figure that? Celia shrugged. It's not something we can measure, I suppose, but it's true. I've seen One More Day. You're really good. But I'm better. And you know I'm better. That's why you and Don almost had me kicked off the project. No, we didn't. Yes, you did. Ruby told me. I wasn't mad at Ruby for telling Celia what I'd told her. The same way you're not mad at a dog for barking at a mailman. That's just what they do. Oh, fine. So you're a better actress than me, and sure, maybe Don and I discussed getting you fired. So what? Big deal. Well, that's just my point exactly. I'm more talented than you, and you're more powerful than me. So? So you're right. I'm not very good at using people, so I'm trying this a different way. Let's help each other out. I sipped my milkshake again, mildly intrigued. How so? I said. After hours, I'll help you with your scenes. I'll teach you what I know. And I go with you to Schwab's. You help me do what you've done, become a star. But then what? I said. We both end up famous and talented, competing for every job in town? I suppose that is one option. And the other? I really like you, Evelyn. I looked at her sideways. She laughed at me. I know that's probably not something most actresses mean in this town, but I don't want to be like most actresses. I really like you. I like watching you on screen. I like how the moment you show up in a scene, I can't look at anything else. I like the way your skin is too dark for your blonde hair, the way the two shouldn't go together and yet seem so natural on you. And to be honest, I like how calculating and awful you kind of are." "I am not awful." Celia laughed. "Oh, you definitely are. Getting me fired because you think I'll show you up? Awful. That's just awful, Evelyn. And walking around bragging about how you use people? Just terrible. But I really like it when you talk about it. I like how honest you are, how unashamed. So many women around here are full of crap with everything they say and do. I like that you're full of crap only when it gets you something." "This laundry list of compliments seems to have a lot of insults in it," I said. Celia nodded, hearing me. "You know what you want, and you go after it. I don't think there is anyone in this town doubting that Evelyn Hugo is going to be the biggest star in Hollywood one of these days. And that's not just because you're something to look at. It's because you decided you wanted to be huge, and now you're going to be. I want to be friends with a woman like that. That's what I'm saying. Real friends. None of this Ruby Riley backstabbing, talking about each other behind our backs crap. Friendship, where each of us gets better, lives better, because we know the other." I considered her. "Do we have to do each other's hair and stuff like that?" "Sunset pays people to do that, so no." "Do I have to listen to your man troubles?" "Certainly not." "So what then? We choose to spend time together and try to be there for each other?" "Evelyn, have you never had a friend before?" "Of course I've had friends before." "A real one, a close friend, a true friend." "I have a true friend, thank you very much." "Who is it?" "Harry Cameron." "Harry Cameron is your friend?" "He's my best friend." "Well, fine," Celia said, putting out her hand for me to shake. "I will be your second best friend, next to Harry Cameron." I took her hand and shook it firmly. "Fine. Tomorrow I'll take you to Schwab's, and afterward we can rehearse together." "Thank you," she said, and she smiled brightly, as if she'd gotten everything she'd ever wanted in the world. She hugged me, and when we broke away, the man behind the counter was staring at us. I asked for the check. "It's on the house," he said, which I thought was the dumbest thing, because if there is anyone that should be getting free food, it isn't rich people. "Will you tell your husband I loved the gun at Point Doom?" the man said as Celia and I got up to leave. "What husband?" I said as coyly as possible. Celia laughed, and I flashed her a grin. But what I was really thinking was, I can't tell him that. He'll think I'm making fun of him, and he'll smack me.
Sub Rosa, June 22nd, 1959. Cold, cold Evelyn. Why would a beautiful couple with a gorgeous 5-bedroom home not be interested in filling it up with a brood of children? You'd have to ask Don Adler and Evelyn Hugo that question. Or maybe you'd just have to ask Evelyn. Don wants a baby, and certainly we've all been waiting with bated breath to find out when the progeny of those two beautiful creatures will make his or her way into the world. We know any child they have would be sure to send us into fits of swooning. But Evelyn's saying no. Instead, all Evelyn talks about is her career, including her new movie, Little Women. More than that, Evelyn doesn't even attempt to keep a clean house or mind her husband's simple requests, and she can't be bothered to be kind to the help. Instead, she's out at Schwab's with single girls like Celia St. James. Poor Dawn's at home, yearning for a child, while Evelyn's out having the time of her life. It's all Evelyn, Evelyn, Evelyn in that house, and she's left a very unsatisfied husband.